Hey, Mama friend. Welcome back to the Mama Mindset Podcast. I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. And in today's episode, I bring you an absolutely amazing guest. I bring you Meygan with Marriage365. She talks to me about all things sex, intimacy, marriage. We dive pretty deep into this conversation on intimacy and how do you feel intimate with your husband? What steps do you take to be intimate with your husband on days when you're touched out? As stay-at-home moms, we are emotionally burnt out. We're physically burnt out. We are just done. However, we love our husbands. I love my husband. You love your husband, and we want to spend time with them. But at the end of the day, how do you do that? How do you reconnect with them? How do you find the time? We go into all of that, from finding the time to how do you connect emotionally and physically. So marriage, sex, life, love, kids, all of those things, we dive deep into it. We talk about orgasms. We talk about the female anatomy. We talk about all of those fun things. So grab a cozy beverage and join me in this conversational journey with Meygan. Hi, Meygan. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me.
Absolutely. I've been anticipating and anxious for this conversation. So I'm very excited for you to bring your expertise and your knowledge to the listeners. And yeah, I'm just excited to dive in. I have so many questions already going in my head, but I want to give them a little bit of background and a little bit of context on who you are and kind of mostly how you guys got started on this journey.
Okay, absolutely. So my husband and I, like most couples, got into marriage feeling like our love would help us conquer anything that came our way. So when we stopped feeling those loving feelings and the butterflies went away, we had so many problems. And our arguments turned into fights, which then turned into combat. And we had in-law issues. We had $200,000 of debt that we had built. We're very stubborn people. We're both leaders. We're both strong-willed, and that just came crashing. And so by the third year of our marriage, we were heading towards divorce. In fact, I actually wanted the divorce more than my husband did. And our parents have been married 12 times. So we have 12 marriages between both sets of our parents. And
wow.
That's a lot, right? That's like an overwhelming number. And so we only knew divorce and you just get remarried and it's the next person. You cross your fingers hoping that this will be different. And so what really changed was my husband refused to go to therapy and I went by myself. And for 13 months, I worked on myself. My therapist taught me, if you want to make a better marriage, make a better you. Stop pointing your finger, stop waiting for your husband to change. Get healthy because you want that for yourself, no matter what happens in your marriage. And that was life-changing for me. And so 13 months later, my husband finally swallowed his pride and insecurities and admitted that he had not been doing his part. He noticed the change in me. And then we began to rebuild our marriage, which took several years. And in that process, we were very frustrated with the lack of resources available to couples. Mm-hmm. If you can't afford therapy, there's not really much else out there. Mm-hmm. And that frustrated us. And so we kind of started creating our own resources and researching things online. And our friends were like, you need to share this with the world. This is unbelievable. And so it all started back in 2013 with a Facebook page. That's it. It was a Facebook page. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to throw out some of our wisdom out there. And then one follower became 10,000 followers, which then, grew. And then we're like, well, let's start a blog and let's start an Instagram and, maybe we should write a book. And now it's amazing to think we reach almost 4 million people every week around the world at Marriage365. And we are vulnerable. We open our marriage, our faults and all. We do not consider ourselves to have a perfect marriage because nobody does. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing is when a couple puts themselves out there and just shares the good, the bad, the ugly, but then teaches techniques, what other couples they say, oh, we're not alone in this,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much shame when you're hurting in your marriage, right? There's so much shame and embarrassment, and it's not something you just chat with friends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hold it in. And so we wanted to create affordable online resources for couples, and that's what we do. And we love it. And I do this full time now.
I love that. As you were telling me that story, I'm not kidding you. I can like getting goosebumps from it. It's just such a beautiful journey. Something that you said in the beginning that really resonated with me. And I want people to understand, and I think we forget, is when you guys were rebuilding your marriage and working on that, it took you said it took you several years.
Years.
So I think that is so important. Like as we dive into this topic today, I think it's important for us all to remember, myself included, that the changes that we make or the improvements that we make or the shifts that we make and how we approach things isn't going to morph our marriage or drastically change it overnight. Like if you want to improve something, it takes time. We talk about that in physical fitness. We talk about that in anything. Like there is no just like, secret key to
instant success.
Exactly. Yeah. It just doesn't happen immediately. So I love that you said that. And you said it, and I don't even know if you realized what you said, because it just is what it is. And so I just want people to remember that it does take a while for that to build. And then I feel like, do you feel like even like after a few years, if you've gotten to that place, it's still, it's not like, okay, we've reached this peak and now we're good forever. It's like a constant effort. You keep working on it.
You keep hence the name Marriage365. Our whole thing is you have to put a little effort in every single day of the year, because there's no vacation from marriage. You don't get to say, well, this week I'm just not going to make effort. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. So what I want to dive in today specifically, before we started recording, you had talked about the fact that you were a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. And that's a better part of a decade. So that's like right around how long I've been home. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. And and I don't see that changing. I'm doing the podcast and I'm doing some other things too, but most stay-at-home moms still have a secondary way of earning an income and things like that. So what I want to dive into today is this feeling of touched out. And we talk about that. We hear that sort of term a lot. And from a completely selfish standpoint, that's something that happens with me. So I know if it happens to me, it happens to everybody else. And every stay-at-home mom that I've talked to, it truly is an issue, because you're giving physical, emotional, spiritual support to tiny humans all day long. And you want nothing more sometimes than to have an adult conversation. But then when that adult comes home, your partner, you're kind of drained. And you feel like you have like nothing else to give. So in your guys's personal experience and also with your members, how do you address that? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I'd love to just dive into that a little bit with you.
Absolutely. And I also want to say, when I had my first, who's now a teenager, I had postpartum depression on top of that. So for 4 months. So I also feel like that was even magnified, like as like a new mom, I'm thinking we're going to be so happy together. Everything's going to be great. And then my daughter had colic and then she screamed all the time. And then I had this depression, which I am not a depressive person. I'm very positive most of the time. So all of that really just threw me for a loop going into motherhood, I think. But I think this is what we have to understand. You and your spouse came first, or you and your partner, right? I mean, there would be no baby if you weren't together.
Right.
So I think it's really important to remember that you two were a unit. You were your own family unit first. Then the children came. And we can definitely forget that. I think also we need to set the bar pretty low, especially if the kids are, we say like ages 5 and under. There is a really important statistic I think people should know, that if you have kids ages 5 and under, even if you've got kids that are older, but you've got still one that's in that category of 5 and under, the dissatisfaction rate is 92% in the United States. That means that spouses feel not too thrilled about that season of life. And that is when your marriage is at the highest risk for divorce. The second highest risk is empty nesters when the kids leave. And you know why, right? Because they made the marriage all about the kids. Yes. And then they neglected their relationship. And then the kids are out of the house and they go, I don't even know who you are. And so we want to prevent, knowing that those two statistics are facts. There is research behind that. You can talk to people. I think even keeping that in the part of your brain that reminds yourself, I don't want to be that statistic. I don't want to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
And it's not to scare anybody. It's just what it is. And I think it really is a mindset. And I think a lot of, I'm going to say for women, we look at our husband desiring us as an annoyance. Like, oh, he wants sex. Oh, he wants touch. Oh, he wants to kiss. And I'm thinking, when I looked at it as, wow, my husband still wants sex. My husband still desires me after we've had kids, and my body is not the same as it used to be. It's this mind shift of sex and physical intimacy is a gift to your marriage. It's not a curse. It's not an annoyance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, because I'll the only thing I can go off of is personal experience, right? And I try not to like dive too much into my marriage and my sex life on here, because that's not what I talk about all the time, but it is a huge part of just being a woman and being a female. And I would say like Brad is so good about, I'm very lucky in that he's still attracted to me. He still loves me. He still wants to have sex with me, all these things. And he tells me that. He actually says, doesn't it make you feel good that I want you, that I want to be intimate with you. I want to hug you and I want to hold you. And then it really makes me pause. And he doesn't say it in a spiteful way. He says it in like an honest way. Like, I still love you. I still find you incredibly attractive. I still want to have sex with you. And I'm like, oh, wow. I am so lucky like that. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed to have somebody that wants to be intimate with me and wants to spend time with me in that way. And who loves and appreciates my body for the 3 beautiful babies that it gave him. And, so I think that's such an important thing. So how, when you're in the moment, do you do that? Is that just learned behavior over time?
It is. It's learned behavior over time because our thoughts determine our actions, and then our actions become habits. This is like psychology 101, if you will.
Okay.
What you think, right? What you focus on, what you think, that's how you respond to life. They become your actions, your daily. And then if you do them enough and long enough and over time, then they become habits. And that's good and bad. So if you think positive things, you tend to choose, more positive things in your life. And then you have positive, healthy habits. And the same goes for the negative. So think about it. If you're going, oh, sex again, oh, touch again, right? Your thoughts are already going to determine your attitude and your actions when your spouse gets home. And so that's why I think it's really important to I write reminders all over my house. I have Post-its everywhere, in journals, in books. I love my girlfriends because we will all share text messages and say like, hey, just a friendly reminder, like your husband still thinks you're sexy after 20 years of marriage, and enjoy tonight, have fun, things like that. Where you're getting yourself ready and equipped for that mindset. Now, there's something that we teach at Marriage365 that's called the 60-second blessing. And it's so simple. It's a 2-minute habit. Men tend to love this habit. And what it is one spouse goes first. And for 60 seconds, they talk about all the different things they love about their spouse. I think your butt's sexy. I love how hard you work for our family. You're a really kind person. I love how loyal you are. You're so quick to forgive. You're a good father. Okay, things like that. And then for the next 60 seconds, the second spouse goes and they say things. And it sounds really simple. And it is. At first, it's a little overwhelming for people who've never done it. But we always challenge people, try that for 7 days, because I don't think as spouses with kids, we spend enough time speaking words of life to one another. It's very transactional in marriage. It's, did you do the dishes? Oh, so-and-so's got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. This bill is overdue. And that becomes more roommate situation. So the sex and the intimacy and the touch is just not even thought about. And then when it comes, it's like, oh, okay, I'm so tired. So that's why I think there's like this building up in anticipation of like, oh, that's right, we still like each other. We still love each other.
Right. Yeah. And I love that because it's short and sweet. It's like to the point, let's connect. And it's like rapid fire, basically, and
absolutely.
And I think that the ability to connect within a 2-minute period, if you're doing it in that way and structuring it that way, is huge. It's huge. And we have a 7, a 5, and a 2 7, 5, and 2. And so we have 2 that are 5 and under right now. And you're right. You hit the nail on the head when you said like life feels very transactional. In the evenings when Brad gets home, it feels very transactional. It's like dinner, dishes, baths, bed. And then we have things that we have to do independently too, because we both want to work on ourselves. So if I have a workout to do and we have reading to do, like big proponents of still working on ourselves independently. But what that's led to kind of is 10 o'clock at night and we haven't taken any time for each other. So we're doing all of this independent work in the midst of raising these tiny children. And then we're like, well, shit, now we don't have any time for us. So even that 2 minutes, even if we could take 2 minutes, like you said, and give it like 7 days, not just one day, but do it like for a solid 7 days, I feel like that could be hugely impactful for a lot of people. So my question on that is, that takes 2 to tango. And so, we originally talked about working on ourselves. And so I know a lot of your members and a lot of the people that you speak to are women, because women are kind of that driving force in a relationship sometimes. And so how do you, and I know you guys probably get this question a lot, but how do you bring on board your spouse and sit down with them? Because like we could listen to your guys's Instagram and do your lives and participate in the membership and things like that. But then how do you draw your spouse in to like want to do something like a rapid fire, your 2-minute talk?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, by the way. I think what's really important is your attitude about it. I think a lot of people go into a conversation like that with, you're the problem, it's not me. That's their mindset. Or they'll even say like, oh, well, you need therapy, or you need to do this. I always tell women, make it about we. Say we. I think this would be so good for us. I think we could really benefit for this. And then if you don't do the we, do the I. I know that this would mean a lot to me. I think that this would be important. And remind your spouse about your wedding vows. We forget what we promised each other. And we promise to love, honor, cherish one another in good times and in bad times, when we feel like it and when we don't feel like it, in sickness and in health, COVID or no COVID, right? Like we vowed to show up and do the work. And so there's a way to say it. Like, I mean, I would say it this way, babe, I would keep it really positive at first. I just want to tell you, I love you and I miss you. I miss hanging out with you. I miss the times we had before the kids. And by the way, it's okay to mourn that season. I think a lot of couples feel bad, like, oh, we have kids and we love them, but it's okay to miss those one-on-one times with your spouse. And to say, I think it would be so good for us to start implementing some just more time to connect on a heart-to-heart level, more time for physical touch, more time for good conversations that aren't about the kids and not about work and not about money in the house. What do you think? And just leave it open and see what your spouse says. I think if you come in more of a negative light, like, I think we're in trouble, I'm really lonely, there's a time and a place for that. But I think your first attempt should be really positive and more like, this is exciting and this would be good for us. And then, of course, depending upon their response, then you move on to what you need to do from there.
And I think you can step in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even if you get turned down or they're like, nah, I don't want to do that tonight, or that doesn't sound, like, try again. maybe give it like a couple of
Absolutely.
days, try again and maybe take a different approach. So if the first approach doesn't work, maybe try a little bit of a different approach. And it don't just accept a no, maybe it's a not
Yeah.
right now. Like look at it as it's not a no forever. Just maybe look at it as a not right now, and you can approach it maybe a little bit differently next time.
For the 60-second blessing, what I would do is I would approach it that way and said, I heard this thing on this podcast and I wanted to try it out. And if they say no, I would wait a week. And then it's on YouTube. So you can just type in the 60-second blessing or Marriage365. It'll pop right up. It's a 3-minute video where I actually teach you and show you how to do it.
Oh, cool.
And just send the link and say, hey, remember I was talking about that 60-second blessing? Here, babe, I just watch this. It's 3 minutes. Hopefully they'll watch it. Okay. Then again, if they don't watch it, you can follow up and be like, hey, did you watch that thing I sent you? Oh, no, I haven't. Okay. Well, hey, listen, it's okay. You don't have to do it back to me, but can I just share with you 5 things I love about you? And you do the 60-second blessing. I mean, that's my story is for 13 months, my husband did not do one thing. And my therapist said, you show up, you choose love, you make effort, you do the work, because at the end of the day, you are only in control of what you bring to your marriage. And that, again, I go back to that is so powerful because we get so caught up and we get discouraged when our spouse won't participate. But like you said, don't let that stop you. Keep trying. You have to keep trying. That's what you vowed and promised to do. And that's why we hashtag everything with I choose love, because love inside of marriage is not a feeling, despite what Hollywood would have us think and believe. It's a choice. It's a choice to show up and to choose love, whether you feel it or not.
So would another option to be maybe to write it down? Like if they're not willing to have an actual conversation, could you start leaving like a couple of notes here or there? Like maybe by their coffee cup in the morning, I just want to let you know, I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing the dishes last night. Or I love that you helped me clear the table. Or like you said, I think your butt is really sexy. Have a great day. Like, I mean, you could start with maybe something like that and then kind of move into your 60-second blessing, like as things maybe progress. Is that an option?
Yeah. And on the video, we talk about it. We typically have couples start with writing it out because not everyone is a communicator. I mean, my husband and I have been doing this almost every day for 9 years. And I can tell you that when we don't do the 60-second blessing, we feel it for sure. And so, yeah, I think you can definitely write it down. I think a lot of men, it's important to know that their love language, I don't know if you've ever touched on love languages.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of time men, it's words of affirmation is number 1 in men. So those words, I mean, men love to be told, I'm proud of you. You're sexy. I love you. Oh yeah. So, I mean, not that women don't like to hear those things, but when it comes to the test, the author, Gary Chapman, who created it, he has said that the men's love language, number 1 is words of affirmation. So interesting. Not all men, but the average man. Yes.
Right. I could definitely see that. So going back a little bit, so we started talking about the 60-second blessing. So you're suggesting kind of starting the 60-second blessing and adding that into your marriage as a way to form intimate feelings. And
yes.
And then from there, we can kind of touch on that feeling of touched out and that feeling of overwhelm.
Yes. Well, because now you're preparing your mind, you're preparing your heart, you're preparing your mind for like, that's right. We love each other. We're best friends. We're husband and wife. This is a good thing. And so that's like, that fills the cup, right? Because you're like, I'm feeling great. He just complimented me. I just complimented him. Another thing I would say is all of our marriage and family therapist friends always say, connect for 2. And we say like for 2 minutes. So other than the 60-second blessing, just like a 2 to 4 minute conversation. And the 3 things you can't talk about: kids, work, and money. And if you can do, and I mean, I'm not sure, Amy, if you've seen like our book, but we have a book called, this is where like parents love this because it's 365 connecting questions for couples. It's an open-ended question a day for a whole year. And so a lot of times after being with the kids all day, right, we can't come up with a creative question to ask our spouse. And our husband's been at his job all day and he comes home and he's exhausted and tired. And so that's really where this book came from, is because my husband and I were so exhausted after working all day and with the kids. We're like, what if we came up with the questions and all the people had to do was open the book and ask a question? So I would say too, emotional intimacy leads to physical intimacy. You can't skip that step. I mean, you can every once in a while, but you'll feel like a piece of meat if you're not getting the emotional component. And of course, sex is so much better when, there's emotional connection and emotional intimacy. And so I think the emotional intimacy, just having these open-ended conversations about all different things, will really then can help you soften your heart towards physical touch, soften your heart, get you in that mindset, and prepare you to be like, that's right, I enjoy this, I like this.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love that the book is just open and go, like, okay, this is where we left off. And it doesn't have to be like a 45-minute dialogue. It can just be like, we're going to take 5 minutes and the kids, set them up somewhere with something to do. If it's before dinner, or maybe even if it's after dinner or something, and just say like, mommy and daddy need 5 minutes. That's boundaries, which I know you guys cover a lot, is talking about boundaries. So that sets a boundary up for them, and it allows you to connect with them. And it shows your children how important that is in your marriage. It might be kind of tough at first. We've had to do that with the kids. It's not always perfect. We definitely have work to do, but they understand most of the time. It's not, like I said, it's not always perfect, that mom and dad are having a conversation, or I need a hug or something. And that is our time to connect or do something together for just a minute. So I love that everything you said is amazing and we can all improve on. And where I want to go kind of from there is something you said about, I can't remember how you worded it just now, but it was like that we deserve this as women, as wives, like something that we want to do, after that emotional connection. It's like, oh yes, I want this. I actually enjoy this, because I think sometimes, would you agree that sometimes we maybe get in sort of a servitude mindset, but however, and that comes from learned behavior, that's a cultural thing too. But I think sometimes as women, we forget, like, you have the power of pleasure within you, and you want to feel good. But I think we're so indoctrinated in this idea of servitude, or of like, maybe that's not the correct way to explain it, but serving our husbands.
You're like, I'm here to please him, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I will be completely honest with you. For the first 7 years of my marriage, I've been married almost 20 years. So for the first 7, it was all about him. And I finally went to him and said, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. I want to orgasm. I want to enjoy this. And we need to fix this problem. And I think there are a lot of women who actually have not orgasmed. They are not enjoying sex. They've never really known or experienced like an amazing lover. And maybe the husband doesn't know, maybe he thinks he's doing the best. Maybe she's never spoken up. I mean, there's so many dynamics with that, but I think it's really important that women need to be honest with themselves, that if they've never enjoyed sex, they need to get to the core of why. And whether that's sexual trauma from the past that was never healed, again, whether that's their spouse comes in the bedroom and it's all about him, whatever that is, they need to get to the core of that. And of course, we have tons of resources that can help you get to the core of where that comes from, and then how to overcome that. But for the rest of us that have enjoyed sex, or we have orgasmed, and like you said, we like to be pleasured, and we want to be intimate with our husband. These are the kinds of things, the 60-second blessing, having, open-ended conversations. Those are doorways that will help lead to that, because you already know that you like it, but it is that reminder of, this is a gift to my marriage. I have a husband who's not cheating on me, who is not looking for it somewhere else, who actually wants to be intimate with me. And I'm telling you, it was a light bulb moment for me when my therapist said that. She's like, you're so fortunate, because there are so many women where their husbands don't want to have sex with them, and you're not one of them. And I'm like, I can't even imagine my husband not wanting to have sex with me, how hard that would be. So again, I feel like it's a gift. I do want to say this. I think this is more on the practical side. Something that I did, because I felt the same way. Stay-at-home mom, kids touching me, Our son also, by the way, is autistic. So there's that whole other level of just stress and frustrations and like 4-hour tantrums that he would do that would just exhaust me. One of the things that I was told many years ago as a new mom was to get help. And I know that not everyone can afford it, but we put it in the budget. And I had high school girls in our neighborhood who would babysit like after school. So it was a little bit more affordable than like a nanny or something like that. And they would just come over for a couple hours and I wouldn't go run errands. I would rest. I would go on a walk. We have like a community pool. We live by the beach. I would go by the beach. I would rest and I would conserve some energy so that I could be intimate with my husband that night. And that was really helpful. And by the way, we still do that. I mean, we still make sure we have moments of self-care, even if it's small pockets, or when my kids would nap, it was the same thing. I would make sure, okay, I want to organize the pantry, but I really want to have sex with my husband. And I think we should have sex. So I'm going to actually just take a nap while they're napping, and giving yourself permission to rest on some of the days that you know you're going to have sex. Now, I realize I say when you know you have sex. Okay, so we're advocates for scheduling sex at Marriage365.
I was going to ask you. Okay, so yes. I'm excited to hear about this. Yeah.
Yes. And the reason why is exactly what we're talking about today. It is almost impossible for two people to be in the mood at the same exact time, and that the stars would align and no one would have a bad day. It happens. And if I would tell anyone, if you're having spontaneous sex and it's working, don't schedule sex. You don't need to. It's working. Keep doing what you're doing. But that's about 10% of marriage. That's it. 90% of couples say one spouse is in the mood, one spouse isn't. And so it's something to consider, scheduling sex. So can we just talk really quickly about sexual rejection? Can I just go there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's do it. Because
this is important. So you've had a hard day with the kids. Your husband comes home and he's like, hey, let's get it on. And you're like, no way. And what happens is your husband feels, of course, sexually rejected. Now, you still love him, but in that moment, he doesn't feel it. And if you've ever been sexually rejected, you're putting yourself out there, you're initiating sex. It's very hurtful. It's a different kind of pain. Right. It's a different kind of hurt. It actually, what it touches is your insecurities. Am I not sexy enough? Do they not love me anymore? It touches a different part. And I think if you've ever been sexually rejected, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So what we say is there should be 3 alternatives. Okay. I hope everyone's taking notes here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, grab a pen, people. Yeah. I have mine.
I'm going to save you a therapy session. I'm saving you $150 right now. Okay. So 3 alternatives that every single married couple should have when one spouse is not in the mood. So option number 1, connect emotionally. So, hey babe, you know what? I'm so sorry. I had the worst day with the kids, but you know what? Can we take a walk? Or can we play a card game? Can we ask one of Casey and Megan's open-ended questions? Because I still love you. It's just, it really was a bad day. So you're not rejecting them 100%. They're not going to this corner of the house and you're not going to this corner of the house. You're still saying, I still want to be with you. Just the thought right now in my energy level, it's impossible for me to even think about it. But can we connect emotionally? So that works really, really well. And sometimes a spouse will say, no, it's okay, babe, no worries. But at least you're putting yourself out there to say, you still matter to me and I still love you. Okay. Option 2, please your spouse. That's what oral sex is for. That's what the shower's for. Just because you're not in the mood doesn't mean that you can't please your spouse. If they're all hot and bothered and horny, you can say, you know what? I love you. It's like not going to happen. I'm not feeling good or whatever the reason is. I had a hard day at work, but hey, you know what? Like I would love to bring you to orgasm. And a lot of times that's a yes by that spouse. That's like, great. And you get to make it all about them that night. And you can find pleasure in pleasing your spouse sexually. That's a good thing. The third option goes back to the scheduling sex. If you're not in the mood, one of you is not in the mood, you say, hey, you know what? It's just, I know like tonight, it's just not going to happen tonight, but hey, you know what? We've got nothing going on Friday. Can we put it in the calendar for Friday? And then if you're the one that is not in the mood and you're saying, let's do it Friday night, it is your job to initiate sex on Friday night. to
Oh,
say,
that's a good thing to
hey,
know.
like not your spouse's job. It's your job because you weren't in the mood to say,
Right.
oh, hey, Friday night, you put it in the calendar and then Friday night happens and hopefully you're in the mood. Now, I always get asked this by women. Well, what happens if Friday night you have a bad day? Like, then I feel obligated, like I have to. Again, I go back to that's a mindset. That's a negative mindset towards sex. But if truly you had like the worst day, or you start your period, or again, like something bad happens, that's life. That's why you go back to the 3 alternatives. Okay, you know what? I know we had it scheduled. I'm so sorry. Can we connect emotionally, or can I please you? So you need to go back to the alternatives or put it again on the calendar for the next night or something like that. So if people can do that when they know they're not in the mood, that will really help keep the marriage strong, despite the touched out. Like, I'm done. I can't do this, but I'm not rejecting you as a human being. I still love you. I still desire you.
Right. So I love the concept of scheduling sex. And so that answers a lot of questions for me personally, because we've tried that. We've tried scheduling sex and then it falls through, or we're not consistent enough with it. But if we would have fallen back on those 3 things that you just talked about,
Yeah.
we would have been able to continue it, I think, because life happens, like you said. And then instead of like addressing it with one of those 3 things as another option, as an alternative or whatever, it was just like, move on, like move past it. And we'll try again next week, not tomorrow. It's like, oh, Wednesday's over and done. Guess we have to wait till like Sunday, which brings me to another question. So when we were scheduling sex, we were trying to schedule it for Wednesdays because hump day, and Sunday night seemed like they were easy, like we were always home. We were usually winding down. So those days seemed, that seemed to work for us. But is there a magic number? I think, sometimes we feel like, and maybe husbands, I've heard this, that husbands have a number in their mind of like, this is what I need, or this is where we should be at. This is what my buddy's doing down the street. So like, this is where I think we should be. So is there a number? What is the number, or does it depend?
Okay. So it kind of depends. So the average married couple has sex 1 time a week. So that's the average. Okay. It tends to dip down, of course. Again, going back to that, if you've got kids 5 years old and younger, it tips down to like 2 to 3 times a month. Okay. So maybe like every 10 days they're having it. I never give a number to somebody. I never say you should be having sex X amount of times a week. What we say is just make sure that both of you are satisfied. And so that's where you have to have the conversation. And one of the questions in our book is, how often would you like to have sex? And is it realistic with our schedules? Those are the 2 questions, because frequency is important to talk about. And it can be uncomfortable because some people will say, well, I want it every day. Okay, of course you want it every day. I also want cupcakes every day, but is that good for me? Is that realistic, right? So I think that's where the conversation goes. So you both put your number out there. And actually, if you want to have fun with it, you could each have like a pad of paper and you ask the question and you say, okay, write down the number. How many times a week would you like to have sex? Write it down. Don't show each other. And then at the same time, go 1, 2, 3, and then show your number. It's actually really fun to do if you want to make it more fun. And you'll be shocked. Like some people will be like 7. Some people will say 1. And there's no right or wrong answer. Then what you do is you take that and you try to find a middle. Hopefully you match up on the first try, but if not, it's okay. Let's say your spouse says 4 and you said 2, and say, okay, how about 3? Let's try it and see if that works. We would say a sexless marriage is someone who has sex less than 4 times or less a year. That's considered a sexless marriage. And that you're in the red zone for a lot of other issues. Unless if there's a health concern, of course, and there's something different like that. But other than that, 4 times a year or less, you are considered a sexless marriage.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Those numbers are good and super realistic. I love the idea of just of the card, like writing it on a piece of paper, then showing it. Like, I love that. It's just a fun little game.
Yeah. Fun exercise. Yeah. And I will say, like, we have one of our friends, they have sex like once a month, and they are both completely satisfied with that in this season of life. and it's changed. I mean, we're all getting a little older now, so it does change a little bit, your libido, but I would say, again, I'm not going to judge them. I mean, to me, I'm like, once a month, that's it. But they're happy. I know they're happy, and that works for them. And they just both have a lower libido. And so that's why I don't want to give a number, because then a couple like that would say, oh no, something's wrong with us. But what you want to look for is sex is about connection. It's not about the orgasm. Physical touch is about connection. That's what it's about. And if you focus on, this is an opportunity for us to express our love and to connect in an intimate way. We connect with our spouse in this way that we don't connect with anybody else, because you can do your finances with somebody. You can go shopping with other people. You can cook with other people. I mean, you can communicate with other people. You can fight with other people, but sex is the one thing that you and your spouse get to share together. That's why I say, if you view it as a gift, it doesn't feel like a burden or a frustration.
Yeah. And when you talked about lowering your expectations, you don't know how to lower your expectations unless you know where you're at. You have to know where you are in order to see, do I need to lower my expectations? Are we both on the same page? So by knowing what their expectations are, or your expectations are, I think sometimes we don't even know what our expectations are. We just take it day by day without saying, you know what, I actually think that I would feel really good if I had sex once a week. Or if you actually did some reflection and be like, you know what, I really love sex or intimacy with my husband in some way. And I actually think I really want to shoot for like 2 days a week. But unless we think about that ourselves, we're so moment to moment, like, and then that moment passes by and you're like, oh my gosh, we've gone a whole week without sex, but you don't even know what your expectation is. So then you don't know what you're working towards, and everybody's not on the same page. So it just kind of like spirals. It just kind of spirals out of control at that point. And then you're just left with like, we're just a mess.
Well, and that's why, again, going back to the scheduling sex, it takes a lot of that pressure off in one sense, because it's on the calendar, you're making time for it. And so then I will tell you, when we schedule sex and we have it scheduled, like we have it scheduled for tonight, my husband buys me my favorite coffee drink. He puts the kids to bed. He's doing foreplay throughout the entire day. So that's why people say, well, doesn't that take the romance out of it? But I think opposite. I think, again, I go back to, it's the way you view it. Everything in life, it's our thoughts determine our actions, and they determine our attitude. If we go into something with a bad attitude, that's how we're going to respond and show up to life. So that's why I think I go into it as like, I'm scheduling sex. We make time for things that matter. Do we not? We schedule lunches with friends, play dates with our kids' friends, because those things matter. We know that they're important to us. Why would we not schedule sex with our spouse? And then it's this anticipation leading up to it. You get to romance each other for the day. Maybe that's the day we call it kid swap, where your friends take your kids for a few hours so that you can get ready and shave your legs and take a nap. I mean, ask your friends for help and say, hey, I'll take your kids. Let's do an every other Friday where I'll take your kids for a couple hours. You take my kids. Of course, if you can, put the babysitting in the budget, but there's just so many creative ways that you can make the time for physical touch and for intimacy with your spouse. And if you've got a positive view about it, it will happen.
Yeah. And I love that you said the thing about shaving your legs, because that was actually one of the things I was thinking of. I'm like, if you scheduled that, like, I'm going to shave my legs today. Not that you have to, you want to, like, I want to shave my legs. I'm thinking like, okay, when I go out with girlfriends, cause it's pretty rare for me, like, but if I go out, I'm like, I'm going to paint my nails the night before, and I might, put on some lipstick before I go out. And, I'm going to iron my shirt. No, I never iron my shirt. I'm just kidding. I'm going to throw my clothes in the dryer and de-wrinkle them, like I'm going to like do a little prep work to go out with girlfriends. So why don't we do the same thing for our spouse? And it's because we don't prioritize it, but by scheduling it, we have the opportunity to prioritize those things and get ourselves ready. Because I mean, total transparency here, there's a lot of times where I'm like, babe, I have not showered especially when we had newborns, right now I have a super good routine. But when the kids were really little, I'm like, I have not showered in 2 days, and I don't feel like I want you anywhere near like my personal areas. And I also don't want to take the time to shower right now. I mean, that was when I was like, newborn stage, but which I'm not saying is like a good response by any means, because we've learned from that. But by scheduling it and knowing, nope, it's Wednesday. I know that we're going to have sex tonight. I'm going to shower, even if it's like a 5-minute shower. I'm just going to hop in, get myself cleaned. And you might want to paint your fingernails. You're going to shave your legs. You're going to maybe make a little bit of effort because you know it's on the calendar. So it gives you the opportunity to prioritize that time and get yourself ready. To me, that's like pre-funking, you're like pre-funking for that time. And then it makes it more fun. And that anticipation is kind of there in knowing that it's not so last minute.
Well, and we did that when we were dating, right? I mean, we didn't just show up in our pajamas. We made it an experience, and there was anticipation like, hey, we get to hang out. And that's why we say always keep dating each other, right? Because we stopped doing that. And by the way, just speaking of showers, I think a shower is an incredible way to clear off mommy brain to go from sensual wife and lover. Mm-hmm. And so my husband and I, okay, no judgment here, but we are those people that shower before and after sex. Okay. We're like, so my nickname's like Monica from Friends. Like I'm a super clean freak. I love things clean. I love to clean. I find joy in organizing my pantry. Those things bring me joy. I'm totally all about Marie Kondo. But I think that, it's important to just remember, like, if you're like, I just feel dirty and gross and I've got boogers on me and spit up or whatever, taking a shower rinses all that off. And that's when in the shower, then you go through your list. My husband still thinks I'm sexy. I am sexy. Dang, man, I've had kids and you know what? I can still bring it on. I'm going to, go light some candles or whatever that is. Get yourself in the mindset while you're in a shower. If there's a certain song that gets you in the mood, like we have a sexy time playlist. And I think I love that. I think there are certain musicians, I'm just going to throw it out there, but Dave Matthews is it for me. Yeah. Dave Matthews band for me, his voice, his music, it turns me on. I love it. It gets me all romantic and I want to be with my husband. And we went to a Dave Matthews concert when we were dating, right? So it brings back. So when I'm in that shower, I've got the Dave Matthews concert or Dave Matthews band playing. So I feel like if you can find these things that kind of help you get in the mood that make you, soften your heart. I say soften your heart because I feel like we do harden our heart towards it. We have a bad attitude towards it. So we open ourselves to, I get to be intimate with my husband.
So
showers work.
the other thing that you had mentioned, and this kind of goes back to scheduling it. I love the shower idea because water for me is so soothing and it is, it's just my happy place. Baths are always my happy place. And the girls even know that now, like, Mom, you should go take a bath tonight, which I'm like, oh no, if the girls are telling me I need to take a bath tonight, they see that I'm a mess, Yes. So they know that, but I love your suggestion on that. The other thing with scheduling sex that I was thinking about too is, and what you said earlier about everybody's turn on time, like it doesn't always align perfectly. And so for me, total transparency, like my turn on time is in the afternoon and my husband's not around. So then when he comes home at 5:30 and then we get the kids in bed and everything, like I already said, it's 10 o'clock. I'm like, my turn on time was 1 o'clock. Sorry. And I don't feel good about that because I'm like, wait, this is not going to work for us. Like I cannot keep waiting for my turn on time to magically happen at 10 o'clock because it's just not going to. So how do we, knowing that we have something scheduled increases that anticipation and that excitement, like you said, when you're dating, and then, doing all of the other steps that you talked about to kind of work up towards actually having that turn on where you're like, yay, I want to spend time with you now. We've connected emotionally, like I've cleaned my body, like I'm ready physically to now connect with you on another level. I think that could really help because, and I don't know what it is about the afternoon with me, but I'm like, I've called Brad before. I'm like, are you sure you can't come home from lunch today? Because, which he can't because he's like 30 minutes away, but I'm like, I think you should come home for lunch today.
Yeah. Well, and maybe once a month that's on the calendar where you can get the kids to your friend's house and you've got everything ready and you make it an occasion. Or I have a friend where same thing, her husband works like an hour away. He commutes. They have a hotel they go to and they book a room. And I know it's kind of crazy expensive, but they do this like once a month where she's like, we just like to have sex in the afternoon. And we get the hotel room, we make it a thing. He says he has a lunch meeting to his boss and then he goes back to work. And I'm like, hey, we've got to get creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to think outside the box. I mean, for us, our kids are older and they're in school. And so we have it a lot of times when they're in school because they're not home. And we have a teenage daughter who knows all about sex and exactly what we're doing. So there's no hiding. In fact, funny story, a few weeks ago, she's like, we're like, oh, Kylie, okay, so we're going to go into the room. We got to talk. And she's like, ew, are you guys going to get it on again? And then it was like such a mood killer for us because she knew we were going to have sex. We couldn't relax. And he's like, my husband's like, do you think she can hear us? I'm like, I hope she's not trying to hear us, but I don't know. So we're in that phase where our daughter is very aware of what we are doing and when we are doing it. And so that's a whole nother level of having to get creative when we have sex. So I hear you.
But you know what? I love that you guys display that affection and that she knows that you guys have that affection, because I was talking to my girlfriend about this, who's actually in the house, just total transparency here, in the house, helping me with the kids while we record this, because I can't do this without her help. So I haven't ever done this, but shout out to her because she's amazing. And I really appreciate when she comes and helps me. And because she just does it because she loves the podcast and she loves all of these conversations that we're having. Isn't that sweet? Yes, she's amazing. Love her. So, but we were talking and we didn't grow up with very intimate parents. And that's something that we want to show our kids. But as moms growing up with parents that weren't intimate, which I think is actually the opposite for our husbands, my husband's parents, I still see them like tease each other and pinch each other and like kiss, and he'll wrap his hand around, he'll wrap his hand around her waist, and they're like very conservative couple, right? But they still show these little moments of intimacy, and my parents don't. So, and so I love that you guys represent that for your teenager, because I think, and you guys probably know this, that just doesn't happen very often. And so is that important to you guys to show them like we love each other and we are intimate?
I'm not a parenting expert. I'm considered a marriage expert, but I will say, one of my parenting tips is you need everything you're doing with your spouse, your kids are watching. And it's not to scare you, but they don't listen. They don't do what we tell them to do. They do what they see. And that's really important. So you can say, be kind, be kind, be kind. But if you're not a kind person, they will probably not be kind. And it's the same with our marriage. Like, this is their first opportunity to see love, empathy, forgiveness, compassion, just serving one another. This is their first and most important example. So that's why so many people that come from divorced homes, what do they say? Well, I don't want to get married because I saw the worst. And how sad is that? Because that's not a picture of what a healthy marriage is, because anybody can have a healthy marriage. I believe that with my whole heart. And 99.9% of marriage problems are fixable, by the way, too. So I think it's important for you to disagree and to argue in front of your children, because that's normal and that happens in every relationship, but then to also make sure you make up and you show them apologizing, forgiveness, rebuilding trust, and empathy. Those are opportunities. And I also think it's so important to do the 60-second blessing with your children. You can speak, I love, buddy, that you are creative. I love that you're good at math. I love how you love the dog and feed the dog and walk the dog. Like, we need to be speaking truth into our children too. And so you're giving your kids this beautiful model and example of what a healthy relationship looks like. And it's an everyday opportunity to do that.
I love that you touched on the disagreements, because I was going to tell you that it's very important for Brad and I to have disagreements in front of the kids. And I'll give you a quick little example of what happened the other day, because I was really proud of us. And I'm not saying that this is exactly how it happens all the time, but I feel like if more people had situations like this And I'm not trying to like brag here. I was just very proud of us, but we had a really big disagreement. And so Brad came home and we told the girls, Daddy, they could tell there was some tension, right? And so we told the girls, we went outside and there was no yelling, there was no raising of voices, there was stern talking. And, stern talking, like I have a thought and he had a thought. And we went outside, the girl stayed inside. We set the boundary. You need to stay inside until we're done talking. And we had our conversation, and then we resolved our disagreement and our issue. And then we hugged it out. Like I sat on his lap and we just sat there and hugged. And it was a really big disagreement that we had. It was a pretty big issue, and we hugged it out, and we apologized where we needed to apologize, and the girls saw that. So then they had peeked their head out, because there's like tiny faces in the window watching, and so they saw that we were hugging, and so then they peeked their head out the sliding glass door and they said, can we come out? We said absolutely. Mommy and Daddy had a disagreement and everything is okay. We just needed a couple of minutes to have a conversation about it. And then they saw us moving past it. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that like we have always made the correct choices. I'm not saying I've never yelled at Brad in front of my kids. Like we've both made mistakes and we've learned from that, in seeing like, I don't want them to see me. And I'm a more of a person that yells. He's very soft spoken. And so I know, like, I don't want them to see me treat him that way. And so we've had moments of mistakes, but we've had these beautiful moments, like sitting outside on the deck. I was so proud of us because we've really worked on that. We've worked on that mature level of communication. And then the kids have seen that, because that's the type of marriage that I want for my daughters as they get older. That's what I want. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, girls, marry a man that'll make you chocolate chip cookies, because Brad, he'll bake, so, and he's a great example of that. So I love that you threw that in there, and seeing not only them having you see yourself be intimate with each other, but also how you fight, how you have disagreements and arguments. Like that's really healthy. That's a healthy part of being human. Yeah. And it's just like when you're telling them, stop yelling at your sister, but yet you're screaming at your husband over here. Like that just does not align. So if you're like, okay, you need to doesn't align. Yeah. You have to have a sit down conversation with your sister. I see that we're disagreeing here. Let's talk about it. And then you're like, Daddy and I have a disagreement. You sit down and you talk about it, and then you hug it out. Like that is how a family unit should work. It doesn't always work perfectly, but that's what you should strive for.
You absolutely should. And, the whole goal is that we do better than our parents, right? Mm-hmm. And then our kids would grow up and they would do better than us. And I think that we've hid a lot for centuries. We've lots of generations before this. We hid, we lived with shame. We didn't talk about things. We just kind of stuffed things under the rug, hoping they'd go away. Or it was like 0 to 100 where like dad or mom would get angry, but there was never an apology or an explanation. Right. And you're like, whoa. So we really need to think like we are modeling for our children, and it's okay to be imperfect. In fact, I'm going to encourage people to show your imperfections to your children, because they are too imperfect. And we live in a blame society where we blame everybody and everything, and we sue everybody else. And that's hurting. I mean, obviously look at the world. The world is a very hurting place right now. It's, I know you're trying to make a difference. I'm trying to make a difference, but these people, hurt people. And we need to teach our children this, like the louder people are, the more insecure they are. And they're just hurting individuals. And we need to be able to come alongside and teach our children how to have healthy relationships with other people. It's our job until they're 18, and then they can choose what they want to do. Exactly. Yeah. And then we're done. No, parenting doesn't stop there. Yeah. Meygan, this was all incredibly, incredibly amazing information. Thank you so much for just sharing your insight. I mean, we could talk for hours. I know that your time is precious. So I want to see, is there anything that you wanted to talk about today or that we didn't touch on? And then I would love for you to share how people can follow you, can reach you and gain more resources from what you guys have to offer. Okay. I'm going to go rated R here for the last couple seconds. Yeah, let's do it. I learned something just a couple years ago, that the clitoris has no other function than for pleasure.
Oh,
That was an
yes.
eye-opening. I was like, dang, really? I'm like, oh, I guess that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that there are 6,000 to 8,000 nerve endings in the clitoris.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of nerve endings. And
Mm-hmm.
I again, going back to, I'm really big, of course, on the mindset of viewing it as a gift and being okay, like not feeling bad that you want, you know, your own time and not to be touched. And that's good. And you should have your self-care time. Absolutely. But then to also not neglect your marriage and to remember, like, sex is fun. I mean, after an orgasm, I've never said, well, that was a waste of time. And I just would encourage, I would encourage any of you to go back to that, to go, okay, like my husband feels connected to me. I feel connected. Like that felt great. For me, an orgasm at this stage of life is a release.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a stress release. And I'm not saying that that should be your ultimate goal, because it is about connection, but to also keep that in mind on those really difficult days when you have with your kids, of just, you know what, sometimes I just need a little bit of a release, and I just need to like not think about motherhood right now. And that it's just me and my spouse in this bedroom or in the shower or wherever your choice of location is.
Mm-hmm.
But that sex is truly such a gift to your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if anyone wants to learn more about Marriage 365 and what we do, you can go to marriage365.com. But our number one resource is our membership. And I think Netflix for your marriage, but a million times better. We have videos, courses, worksheets, date ideas, thousands of connecting questions, and it's only $11.99 a month.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
We wanted to make it affordable. Every stay-at-home mom is on a budget, right? Well,
Right.
I'm not even a stay-at-home mom and I'm on a budget. So,
Right.
and you know, it's a great alternative for therapy. It's a great alternative if your spouse is not willing to go to therapy. And this is for couples who are healthy and just want to stay healthy. But this is also for hurting couples who are looking for ways to get unstuck and to fall back in love. And 40% of our members are learning and growing on their own. So this is something you do not even have to do with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we encourage it, of course, but you can learn and grow, because of course our tagline is, if you want to make a better marriage, make a better you.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And $11.99 a month, Meygan, that's incredible, because I follow you on Instagram. So if people aren't following you on Instagram too, I highly encourage you follow Marriage 365 on Instagram. The amount of value that you guys put out, just free content, free value on Instagram, is mind blowing. And then, so the membership that you have, we have not signed up for it yet, but Brad follows you guys very, very closely. And I see that being something we absolutely add into our budget in the very near future, because $11.99 a month is just, again, like mind blowing what you guys probably offer in there. Plus your books, you guys have books, which again, all of that can be found on your guys' Instagram and your website. And I love it. And I would also encourage the mom listeners, a great place to start, something that has really helped us, speaking from personal experience, is Brad adding Marriage 365 on his Instagram, because Casey, your husband, comes on a lot with a male perspective. And some of the things that he talks about is great for us to hear from a female listening to a male, and vice versa. The things that you talk about are great for Brad to hear. And then you guys come on together into your lives. I mean, there's just so much, there's so much content there.
It's what makes us unique, is that a lot of, I mean, therapists, you don't see the husband and wife, you see one of them. And I think it's, you know, a lot of these people who write books, it's not husbands and wives writing them. It's just one spouse. And like, even with love languages, I always think Gary Chapman should have his wife come on and they should do stuff together, because I want to know what his love languages are. And I want to know their fights and struggles. And I think that's what we need. We need that model. And so we have interviews with experts too, like some of the best sex therapists, marriage and family therapists, psychotherapists for things like narcissism and depression and anxiety and ADHD. I mean, we have one called Connection After Baby, where we interviewed a marriage and family therapist who just has such a great outlook and really helps new parents make sure that their marriage is healthy. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great resource. It's kind of like a one shop for all these different things going on in marriage.
I
So
love that. So I'll put all of your information in the show notes. Nobody has to go back and re-listen to all of this. I'll put all the links that people need to connect with you. So Meygan, thank you so much for coming on today. This conversation was absolutely amazing and I really appreciate it.
Amy, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your vulnerability and that you're doing this to help so many parents.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying. We're putting it out there, whether they like it or not. I talk, they listen, So, anyways, well, thank you so much, Meygan. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. Wow. Thank you so much for listening to today's incredibly insightful and powerful episode with Meygan. I cannot believe how much information we got out of her in just an hour. I would have loved to keep talking to her. I have so many other questions, but even though I have questions, I know that I can sign up for her membership. It is incredibly affordable, which I'm probably going to do as soon as I'm done recording this episode. And I hope that you guys do as well. At a minimum, I really encourage you to go follow them on Instagram. Their Instagram page is packed full of free information and free content that absolutely gives you tips and tools, additional resources. They do weekly lives, which are very, very powerful. And I always look forward to. So I'll put everything in the show notes below. Please go check out Meygan. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me too. If this resonated with you, please go share this because this conversation I have with her is powerful. And this conversation is a conversation we are not having amongst women. Please share this on your Instagram page. Take a screenshot. It takes you just a minute. Screenshot the fact that you're watching it or listening to it. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can share it directly from there too. Share it in your stories and tag me in it. I love that. And it really could help another mom today. We never know what's going on behind closed doors in people's marriages. And things like this are really what can help somebody else. If we're not having the conversation with them, maybe they can listen to a conversation that somebody else is already having. So thank you again for listening today. Meygan, thank you so much for coming on the show with me. I absolutely enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys again soon.